I'm Katie Wells, host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast. I escaped the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood, overwhelmed by clutter and buried under the mental load. Now I live in a home that feels calm, manageable, and made for real life. I have margin in my days, energy for who matters most, and time for slow mornings and silly dance parties in the kitchen with my family. With over 5 million listens, the show has helped women around the world turn their homes into their happy place. Around here, we simplify for more peace, more presence, and more joy. We choose grace over guilt and progress over perfection. And we believe your home should give back more than it takes. I'm here to help you do the same. Come along with me and my guests as we share the real stories, habits, and strategies that help you lighten the load from the inside out. Pull up a seat, friend, and let's do this together. Ready, set, simplify. Hello, simplifiers. We're going to kick us off, Caley and everyone listening, with a mic drop moment here. I know Caley will appreciate this because she's a Brené Brown fan, as am I. And so we're going to quote her. We're going to bring her into this because she is like the queen of this topic, I feel like, in so many respects. And she says, connection is why we're here. If that doesn't like tug at your heart, I don't know what does. I know our guest today, Caley, she's back on the show, bringing us so much wisdom when it comes to connection and parenting today. And I wanted to have this conversation related to connection because I recently read that the longest study on happiness ever was done. It was an 85-year Harvard research project, 85 years. Huh. First of all, could you imagine devoting 85 years of your life to something? I mean, I know it was many people, but the single biggest factor they found that determines long-term health and life satisfaction isn't money. It's not education. It's not career success. What they found is that it's the quality of our relationships. And that includes, of course, the one we have with our kids, right? And I'll say, like, in a world of distractions, push notifications, overloaded schedules, so many of us are nonstop, go, go, go. Connection can easily get buried under everything else. So if you've ever thought, oh my gosh, I want to connect with my kids, but I'm tired, or I'm constantly distracted, or my schedule's just too busy. How do I connect in these moments? Or maybe you're thinking like, I've already missed my window. My kids are growing up. Is it too late? Then this episode is going to be for you. Caley, if you haven't heard her on the show, she's a parent coach, childhood development expert who works with families to intentionally create that connection. Everything, her foundation, her strategies, her methods, her philosophy is based on connection. It's the basis for everything she does. So if you're wondering how to build connection when you're busy, how to stay calm when your kid is unraveling, how to nurture those relationships, you are going to love this conversation. Caley, welcome back. I know so many parents tell me they want to connect, but again, life might be getting in the way. Juggling work schedules, overstimulated by tech, sports, like all the things. So why is this happening? And what do you feel like? I mean, you've worked with thousands of families. What's underneath this disconnection so many of us feel, both culturally and personally?
Well, Katie, I'm just sitting here drinking in that whole introduction you just did because it felt like soul food. It's just you highlighting the importance of connection. That Harvard study, I have not read that. It reminds me of long ago when I read the book, The Blue Zones. Do you remember that?
Yes.
book?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Where, you know, the different zones around the world that have the highest life expectancy. This book went through, a bunch of social scientists went through and looked at what do they really share? And some of it was diet. Some of it was lifestyle. The biggest thing that stuck out to me was the interdependence. So the connections, the relationships, how they did life, a lot of the, multi-generational family living. So grandparents and great-grandparents were still so connected to their families. So it was very strong connections to the community, still getting out. You had 100 plus people still finding ways to volunteer. And so that is how important connection is. And that is, the science just, I feel like with time just gets clearer and clearer and clearer. And yet at the same time, it becomes harder and harder and harder. And our lifestyles are set up, our culture is set up in a way that really breaks the connection. And so what is connection? That's like the first thing that I really like to start with, because I feel like it's thrown around a lot.
Yes.
especially in the parenting world. Connect before you redirect, which is a quote from Dr. Tina Payne Bryson and Dr. Dan Siegel, their books. But what connection is, to quote Brene Brown, and this is not a direct quote from her, but this is definitely her definition. So yes, much credit to her and her incredible work on this and the sense of belonging and how important that is to our mental health. It's the energy between two people when they feel seen, heard, and understood. Connection is energy. And so it's not dependent upon playing a certain thing. It's not dependent upon saying the right script. It's not dependent upon being the parent you think you should be. It's about this energetic exchange and the strength of that energy between you and your child in any given interaction. And so that's where the saying, kids don't care about positive or negative attention. They just want attention. It's connection. Because think of when you're fighting with someone, right? In conflict with someone. Well, I can't believe you said that. Feel that intense energy that is hurtling at that person. That is energy between two people. We are intimately connected with someone, even when we're fighting with them, because we are 100% present. Well, depending on what brain state you're in, but we are 100% focused on them. Mm-hmm. And there's strong energy between us. And so that's even when we're upset with our children and maybe we are lecturing or yelling at them, right? Which is obviously not what we want to do, but it happens. That is very strong energy. And so when I work with parents, I'm like, how do we create that much strong energy in the everyday interactions that get really routine and mundane, like getting them in and out of the car? If you have littles, right? You're still helping them in and out of the car seat, or meal times, or making sure they have all their stuff to go to their sporting events or school, or, bathing them. Again, it depends on what phase of parenting and stage of life you're in. But there's so many little mundane routines that we do with our children every single day. There is some parenting advice out there that really talks about special time and carving out time. And
yes,
I'm like, okay, so 15 minutes per kid every day seems, if you have one child, 15 minutes is there. But times 3, that's 45 minutes. I don't have 45 minutes in my morning routine extra. I don't have 45 minutes extra in our evening routine. So I've got to make the small moments matter. And that's not just me saying that actually small moments matter. And the power of connection bids and responding to bids comes out of the Gottman Institute. Dr. Gottman's, Julie and John, both of them, they're a married couple. They're leading researchers on relationship, and they tend to focus on romantic relationships. But those relationship dynamics can be generalized to between partners, between friends, or between a parent and child. So that's where I really like to spend a lot of my energy with parents, is figuring out those mundane, everyday little interactions we have to our children. How do we strengthen and capitalize on those moments of connection to really nurture a meaningful relationship?
You've got 3 kids. What types of bids for connection, I think was a term used, do you see most frequently personally and with your students? As in, like, these little, if we pay attention to them and see them for what they are versus what we think they are, these are opportunities where we can go, maybe my kid needs a little tickle or a little, like micro moment, which we'll talk about more of how we make that part of our rhythm. But what does that look like typically, or what can it look like?
I'm so glad I don't have to be uber professional with you, Katie. Like, you're talking and I'm doing this like dark chuckle in the background. I'm like, oh boy, what do they look like every day, all day? Because sometimes it feels like, I use this analogy in the most loving way, but also the most realistic way possible. Sometimes it feels like chickens pecking at you, like peck, peck, peck. They're just pecking away. It's like, because children need so much, right? And especially the young. So the ages of my kids, I think age and stage does come into play about what connection bids look like. And so I have a broad spectrum now, thanks to I have a 2-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So we've gone through a lot of early childhood, or all of early childhood development with my 8 and my 10-year-old. And my 2-year-old is just in the throes of everything that is 2 and toddler. And honestly, one of my favorite stages of development. So it's fun. And there's a lot of different connection bids that happen every day. So sometimes my toddler will just walk up and look at me and go, up, up. I mean, that's as clear as you can get, right? He wants to be picked up. And even though I'm in the middle of something, and it's not the most convenient time in the world ever. For some of my kids, or the older one, sometimes he'll bring his book. Actually, this is our routine in the morning, and I actually treasure it because he's an early riser like I am. So sometimes I beat him awake, and I'll go out on the couch and have a cup of coffee and either have my computer or have a book, and I'm reading. And he'll come, he's a big reader, and he'll just sit next to me and start reading. He just wants to be near me. He just wants that presence. That's connection. Like that in and of itself is a moment, right? Sometimes it's moments of sibling rivalry. Sometimes it's them screaming at one another. Sometimes it's them saying, it's not fair. You always let him do that. You never let me. And it's like, oh my gosh. Yes, I do. Like, I instantly want to be like, what the heck are you talking about? Right. But that's not what it's really about. Our child is feeling some strong feelings. They're feeling overwhelmed. And so, yes, there are some emotional messages underneath that. But ultimately what they need is they just need a parent who gets it, or a person who gets it, understands it, and says, okay, I see it. I hear it. I understand you. And I'm not going to jump in and try and fix it right away. And then the analogy I like to use for connection bids is a serve and return. So think of...
Is this like a tennis analogy?
Well,
okay,
I grew up playing tennis. I was a tennis player for a lot of years. And I live in Florida, so it's like tennis season year round down here. But pickleball has really come on the scene. And
yes.
So I think probably a lot of listeners can relate to pickleball more than tennis at this point. Or
that would be me. That is my demographic, 65 plus. That's where I belong. Continue on. Yes.
But think of whenever you're playing, okay, so if you don't play pickleball or tennis or whatever, even ping pong, right? If you've ever played a back and forth sport that involves some rhythm, you've got to get into a rhythm of it. And if you make a serve, let's say you do the connection bid first, like, hey, bud, or Ethan, come here, or something like that. That's a bid. That's a serve. Then you have to wait for a return. Because if we just come on it so strong, like, hey, bud, how was your day? What did you do? Who did you sit next to at lunch? Da, 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 da. All of those bids, right? That's just overwhelming because you're not even giving them a space to respond authentically to it.
And keeping to the tennis analogy, I don't know what they're called, but those mechanical tennis ball shooters. Yeah. It's like we are that when we just bombard them. How was school? What'd you have for lunch? Who'd you play with? And like, we're just like pummeling them with tennis balls.
It's that too high. Isn't that a scene on a movie like Billy Madison?
Yes, I think so.
Or like dodgeball, maybe kicking an old school, where it's just like rapid firing and there's even a pause for someone to reset. And so we want to align ourselves, right? We serve the ball and then we wait. We kind of look to see where the ball goes, how they're moving their body so that we can anticipate the return and align ourselves with that return. And then we wait to hit it back. We have to wait for that ball to come all the way back over before we hit it back. And here's the thing I want people to know is sometimes, because parents will be like, well, my kid is silent, or they don't respond, or they're not even looking at me, or they go, and turn away and grunt from me. That is feedback. That is a return. Oh, they're not ready for that, or that's too much. Let me adjust my approach, or maybe I do back up a little bit. It's like following a lead. If you've ever danced with someone, following someone's lead in a dance, you adjust to their body movements and their energy. And so, because again, connection's energy. But what that requires is it requires awareness, which requires presence, which is what you really started this conversation talking about, is this idea that presence is really hard to cultivate in today's culture. So the solution is to
because I think I used to fall into this trap. Like, I'm not doing hour-long crafts with my kids. So therefore,
Heck no.
I'm failing.
Uh-huh.
I'm going up in flames. It's going to be put on my headstone that I did not do arts and crafts with my kids, and I should feel ashamed. And I did not give them the connection they needed. I used to spiral all the time. I'm not doing enough for my kids. I think a lot of us worry about this, right?
Can you imagine our moms in the 90s ever thinking this, Katie? Like, OMG.
Oh, exactly.
No.
Oh, man.
No.
So what do you wish more parents understood about how connection works? What I'm hearing you say is we don't need to do hour-long crafts with our kids if we don't want to. That's not necessarily, that's a one way to connect, but it doesn't look that way. It's more about integrating it into our everyday rhythms, helping our kids put their shoes on. Can reminding my kid about something turn into connection?
Yeah. Okay. I want to respond to two different things. Yes, it can. I'll respond to that first, then hopefully dog ear that and remember to come back to it. The other thing I want to talk about is that let's talk about the hour-long craft expectation real first. There's actually 2 points I want to make. First of all, simple. Anytime you're shoulding on yourself, I should do this more. I should, sit down with them. I should spend more time. They should make these handprint turkeys. We should have these, whatever you're shoulding about, stop. Once you hear the should in your internal script, that is a sign that you are taking yourself out of the present moment and you're holding yourself to arbitrary expectations that what you saw on Pinterest, you saw on Instagram, you saw on TikTok. Like, I don't know, where are you getting these? Or you think all the other moms are doing these? Or like, I love that my kids do these little crafts at school and they bring them home and I don't have to do them at home. We get handprint turkeys from school until they're a certain age. Great. So like shoulding takes you out of the present moment and it's almost always going to make you a more reactive parent because it overwhelms you with guilt and or shame. I'm not doing enough. I'm not thinking of, well, instead of I should be doing this. Do you want to? Because remember, connection is when someone feels seen, heard, and understood. So do you feel seen, heard, and understood when you're forcing yourself to do crafts with your kids? That's not authentic.
I feel like I'm an actor in a movie.
And you're probably stressed out. Like if you're not someone who enjoys crafts and you're gluing and cutting and molding and whatever the heck you're doing, that's not enjoyable for you. And if you're not authentically connected to yourself, you cannot be authentically connected to your child.
Ooh, mic drop.
You've got to figure out like, what do I authentically enjoy? What kind of interactions do I authentically enjoy? So that's skipping ahead. Remember when I said dog ear it, remember to come back to that, right? How do we embed it in our daily routines and create those type of interactions? What kind of playfulness do you really enjoy? Like what makes you laugh? What kind of humor makes you laugh? What kind of warm fuzzies feel authentic when you interact with your children? And that can be really hard. Like, I laugh all the time because like, I'm not a touchy-feely person. I've never been one. And yet I married someone who is, and I have 3 boys who all are, and they all want to snuggle with mom all the time. So like,
that's the way it works.
Right. Like, okay. So I've grown a little bit. I've expanded my ability to do that. And also I've been able to find ways that I like to be a goofy kind of awkward humor. I mean, my sense of humor really well. Yeah. Like it's dorky. I'm a dork and I love being a dork. I'm really proud of that now. And so I love being goofy with my kids and getting like the side eye from them. Like, Mom, what are you talking about? or even, I'm a very thoughtful, introspective person. And I make one of my ways, like I'm over-connect to the world. Like anytime I get new information or experience things throughout the day, I'm like connecting that to a previous conversation I've had or previous experience. Like I make so many connections. So one way I connect with my children authentically is I will tell them, I heard a song the other day that I thought my 8-year-old loves making playlists on Spotify, loves music, loves certain kind of like power ballad songs. I mean, the kid loves some Queen and some Styx, and he also
I love
loves
him. I
like,
love it.
Bruno Mars, right? Like he's just, and so I introduced him to the song Ordinary by Alex Warren. I was like, Bud, I think you're really going to love this song, when he got in the car at school pickup, and I put it on for him. And what that does is that's letting him know I was thinking of you today. And I heard the song and I thought you'd really like it. That's simple. It's authentic. And it's done while we're sitting in car line and driving home. And now every time he listens to that song, because he's totally obsessed,
He thinks
he
of
knows.
you.
He goes, Mom, he'll bring it up. He's like, Mom, this is the song you thought I'd like. And I do.
Aw.
Right. So it's not, we don't have to overcomplicate this. We don't have to do the Pinterest things. We don't have to guilt ourselves for not doing enough. These are just little moments throughout the day. It's about slowing down and capitalizing on these little moments. In fact, I teach a 7-day reconnection or connection reset challenge. And the first thing I teach is slowing down. If we don't slow down, we can't even recognize the moment that we're in.
Yes.
We can't do anything with it.
Is this the trail? Is this how it happens? I'm thinking out loud. You said authentically connecting with yourself. So what are things that, yeah, right. We're going deep here, as Katie and Caley always do. Authentically connecting with oneself, impossible to do when we're rushed, going through the motions.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Slowing down. What feels good to me? How am I feeling right now? I remember one conversation we had years ago. I was like, Caley, I'm so overwhelmed. And you're like, have you gone pee? Have you had water? Have you eaten anything? I'm like, no, I haven't. I haven't done any of those things. And you're like, okay, let's start there. Let's start there, Katie. Right? Back to the basics, back to the foundation, right? Slowing down. But then I know I've felt this way, and I know there's listeners who go, well, Caley, I can't control my schedule. I can't control that my kids are I have 3 kids in 3 different sports. I can't control that I work. So I don't want to make excuses, but I know I certainly used to feel that way. It makes it more challenging, but there are still those workaround moments. All that to say is it kind of like slow down, take a deep breath, like physiologically to like reset our nervous system and go, okay, authentically connect to self. What do I need? How do I connect with my kid right now in this car drive while we're sitting and eating? Even if dinner looks like scarfing food for 3 minutes, you know, like what's the trail that happens? What triggers it? Is it just intentionally slowing down? Is it like a visual cue you put around your house? Like slow down. Like a little sticky note that helps remind
down,
us of this stuff. Calm down, Katie. Just calm down.
We all know how well that phrase works, right? Just calm down.
Yeah. I don't think Andrew said that to me in a long time. That's one thing he listened on. So I'm grateful for that. Please, Andrew,
adaptable.
I love you dearly, but don't ever tell me to calm down.
It's not helping the situation right now. Okay. Well, how deep do you want to go? Okay. So let me just first highlight what the actual heart issue is, and then we'll talk about practical, tangible things. Okay.
Let's talk about the heart, Caley Kukla.
The heart is self-worth. If we're always moving, we're always hustling, we don't even value ourselves enough to make sure we're hydrated or emptying our bladder or nourishing our bodies, because 20,000 other things are so much more important than we are. However, when we get sick, when we have an injury, when we finally crack and have a burnout moment, then all of a sudden, those 20,000 other things have to be put on pause. You don't have a choice, right? And so I love the analogy, and this isn't mine, and I forget, I learned it from the book Real Self-Care by Pooja. I'm blanking on Dr. Pooja. It's a fabulous book. I really recommend it. But she uses the analogy in there about glass balls and rubber balls. And I don't like talking about multitasking. Multitasking is not real. We can't do 2 things at once. We shift attention. Right?
Yes.
So you shift attention. If you've got, something in the oven, something on the stove top, and your kid's sitting at the table doing homework, you're not multitasking by cooking something in the oven, cooking something on the stove, and helping your kid with homework. You're shifting your attention between 3 things on rotation, right? I mean, that's really what multitasking is. So I like to use the analogy of juggling. We're always juggling so many things, and we've got to figure out what balls we can drop in that moment that will bounce okay, that will be resilient, and which ones will shatter. And sometimes those things change. Sometimes work, like you're under pressure, you have a big deadline, it's really important, you've got a lot of money riding on this contract. That's a glass ball. So maybe, the quality of dinner for your family kind of falls off for a little while. That's fine. Like that is a resilient moment, and that's there's all kinds of things. Sometimes it's the health of a loved one. My family's story, like that has been a huge journey for ours. And sometimes that has to be prioritized over everything else. So I don't say that flippantly. I say that with a lot of compassion and experience with that. And so when we start looking at it that way, know that you, as someone who your relationship with your children matters so much. Your relationship with yourself matters so much. If there's a partner involved, we've already identified how important relationships are unequivocally. And so if that's the case, then taking care of yourself, not just for other people, but sometimes we need to tell ourselves that to give ourselves permission to be able to do it. But I hope one day we can all get to the point where we say, well, I'm worth taking care of because I'm a person who's worthy of being taken care of, not just so I can show up for my kids and my partner. So that's the self-worth piece. And so then when we think of we have to slow down enough, like you were talking about when we had that conversation years ago, that's a body scan. That's a self-inventory. Just scanning your body real quick, being like, how am I even feeling? Where are my aches and pains? What needs to be stretched right now? Am I shallow? So when we breathe shallowly, shallow breaths, right? That is a stress response. That trigger, we're not getting full oxygenation to the brain. So we go into a more heightened threat detection level. So taking those big inhales and exhales, everybody always talks about how great breathing is, but it literally signals to your body, you are safe. You can rest and digest.
Yes.
And so when we say, okay, sometimes, especially when I'm working on the computer, I'll say, okay, pause, quick second. Sometimes my watch will tell me to pause. And it's like, oh, am I holding my breath? Am I doing shallow breathing? Let me stand up and take some deep breaths. Just building that bodily awareness into our own needs. It's really that simple. You can do this while you're driving carpool, when you're sitting at a red light. And then take some deep inhales. I've taught parents too, the whole practice of, have we ever done this together where you tense your whole body up super, super tight? No. This might be a fun thing to teach real quick. So this is a really practical, tangible thing you can do when you're sitting in the car. I tell parents, I'm like, when you're on your way to pick up your kids from school, when you're on your way, running late to practice or whatever, right? Do this, try this out. So tense up your whole body, squeeze your fists, raise up your shoulders, make them really, really tense, scrunch up your face. Katie's scrunching her face, make everything tight, clench your butt cheeks together, everything really tight. And now take a big inhale and breathe it all out and shake it all out and make everything loose.
Ooh, I feel like Gumby. I feel loose. I feel good.
It triggers to your body.
Oh my gosh.
This is how much tension you're holding. Let it go, girl. Let it go, right? You can do that. Don't do it while you're actively driving. Do it at a red light. Do it while you're sitting in car line. Do it while you're sitting outside your kid's dance studio waiting for them to come out. Whatever. But you can do little things like that. If you notice you're feeling super tense, there are really simple things you can do to just bring awareness to that, to value yourself. The inventory you were talking about was a practice I started to do before I picked up my kids from Carline so that I could be more present, because I realized I was working right up until the minute I had to run out the door to go get them from school.
Yes, same.
And then sometimes taking a call on my way to go pick them up, and then hanging up on the call while the teacher's looking at me to walk up to get them, right? Haven't we all done that? And then getting out, grabbing them, but I'm still reeling. I still have messages I need to reply to. And they are just so excited to see me, and start acting a fool when I start texting back, when I start trying to make a call with them in the car, when I'm not paying attention, when we get home and they're throwing all the things down and then I'm scrolling through my emails or whatever. So I started saying, okay, my actual time to stop working is 15 minutes before I have to go pick them up. And in those 15 minutes, I'm getting myself a drink. I'm getting myself a snack. I'm cooling off the car because it's hotter than Hades in our cars in Florida when they sit outside in the sun. I'm emptying my bladder. Like all of those things, I'm taking 15 minutes so that I am fully present. My needs are met so that I can then be connected with myself, and therefore the connection with my children's open and available to them.
I think this is incredible. And it makes it about so much more than here's the script I use to connect with my child. Here's how I get closer to my child. It can feel like another thing on your to-do. Okay, now I need to connect with my kid. But I think if you skip this, all the things that you're talking about, which by the way, I hear no one else talk about, then you're not getting there.
Yeah, because parenting, here's my thing. And look, I'm on social media. So you and I talk about the algorithm all the time. Like there's so much. Let me just tell y'all, on the other side, right? Katie and I are on one side of the phone. Y'all are on the other side of the phone. Katie and I are trying to post content to get people's attention, to engage with our content, because that is how we market ourselves. That is how we share our information that we are so incredibly passionate about. Both Katie and I share. Katie, I'm talking for you, but I feel like we've talked about this so much, I can't. But right, we are so equally, so incredibly passionate about the content and the messages we share. It truly comes from the heart because we've lived it in so many ways and we've dedicated our lives to it. It's so hard to get people's attention now because the algorithm is oversaturated. It's totally skewed to whatever. Anyone claiming to understand the algorithm is lying. Okay. And it's so hard to get people to stop scrolling because there's so much noise.
Yes.
And so what gets people's attention is tips and tricks and easy fixes. And here's the magic word. And here's the magic script. And here's the easy 3 things to do. Parenting is not a list of strategies. It's not the perfect script. It's a real, raw, authentic relationship between 2 humans who are imperfect, period. That's what parenting is. And so, yeah, do scripts sometimes help when like we feel stuck and we don't even know what to say? Like, here's an example of what you could say if you don't want to say, knock it off. I've already told you 20 times to stop that. We don't want to say that to our kids. We know that's harsh. We know that's not helpful. What do we say instead? Well, I can give you some examples of words, and I can also tell you, hey, first check in with yourself, and then B, like, think of it as a relationship. How do you actually want to show up for your child? Who do you want to be in that moment? That gets to the heart. It's a little more nebulous. It's harder to post on Instagram, stuff like that. But that's truly the conversation. So it could sound like, hey, this is getting out of hand. I'm going to take this and help you find something else to do. It's just different. It sounds different. I could script it out for you, but I don't want to undermine the relationship aspect of it either.
You hit something I wanted to talk about, and that is that all of us lose our temper at some point, right? Sure. With our partners, with our kids. And I used to, going back to the guilt and shame, feel like, man, I really just messed up my relationship with my kid and I'm going to tear up. I learned something so powerful from you, and it comes up constantly. I think about it all the time because I constantly do this. It's that what we do after those moments when we mess up, I think build more connection than the times we get it right. So I want you to tell my listeners, as I cry through this, about repair and what it looks like, in relationship, and how, it's not just kids, it's every relationship we have. And I think I tear up because for all the reasons I said, and this is what I needed, growing up, was this repair piece. Because when I messed up, or I did something wrong, or I did this, or whatever, I carried so much of that. I'm a bad kid, or I shouldn't have done this. And think about how that formed me as an adult, not to get too deep here. And again, I'm not placing blame on how I was raised or anything, but I think it's just, it plays such a larger role in our relationships, going back to this 85-year-old study, right? Can you speak to that? Can you tell my listeners about that repair piece and what that looks like?
Yeah. I love you. I love you so much. Love your heart.
You.
Yeah, gosh. I think we've got to first recognize relationships, human relationships, whether it's parent-child, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or, adult-child, adult-parent, we're all imperfect humans, all of us. We make mistakes. That's a part of the human experience. And to hold ourselves to this ideal of being perfect is so defeating and actually makes us more reactive. And because we live in the pits of guilt, of shame, because we're never going to measure up to it. And so what do we need more of? We need more compassion. We need more compassion for ourselves. I'm a human. I'm allowed to be human. Right. And I'm not saying it flippantly of like, oh, well, I screamed at my kids, whatever. I'm, human and I can scream at them. That is not the intonation. The intonation is, I lost my temper because I'm feeling so incredibly overwhelmed. We've been quarantined in the house for 5 days. Everybody's sick. I'm cleaning up puke. I mean, whatever, right? Like those are the moments that break us.
Yeah.
Or like, I've got 20,000 things like, I'm out of it now. I feel like 2 years old. I've crossed the rainbow bridge of like that infant stage. But like, man, when you have an infant and you've got other kids with needs and you've been wearing the infant, you're not sleeping through the night, your body is still something you don't recognize and it's producing all kinds of things. Like it is really hard. And we are allowed to let ourselves recognize that and allowed to be gentle with ourselves and be like, this is the moment, right, of humanity right here. And so when we have those moments, we first need to repair with ourselves. And that sounds like moments of compassion. That is not the mom you want to be. That's not who you want to be. And it makes sense that you reacted that way because you're dealing with a lot. You only slept 3 hours last night. You need more sleep. And it doesn't change the love for your child. And then going to your child and saying, you know what? I really don't like the way I handled that. I don't like the way that went. You don't deserve to be treated that way. I was hoping that situation would have gone differently. And I'm going to work and like next time I'm going to approach it differently. And the repair piece, I think you and I know we've talked about this a lot, is sometimes it is the I'm sorry, that's a piece of it. I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be treated that way. That's an important thing because, little children are forced apologies are a big thing in early childhood. Say sorry as if that's going to, teach them true regrets and empathy, which it doesn't. What teaches them true empathy and regrets, right? We have regrets uncomfortable, but we need to feel that to make amends to repair the relationship is by modeling it as a parent, is normalizing it. I think we can all recognize, our parents didn't model it. My parents certainly never apologized to me growing up. I mean, that just wasn't a thing. That's, we know better, we do better. Each generation evolves a little bit. That's no shame or blame on them. But I think for our generation, largely, we never experienced it. And so the best way for children to learn is to experience it with a model. So when we go to our children and say, I'm sorry, I lost my temper like that. That is not the way I wanted it to go. I was feeling really frustrated. And then finding an authentic way for you to repair with them. So they might not be ready. Think of after you have a big fight with your spouse, right? Mm-hmm. You may not, okay, I'm sorry. And then this is actually a conversation I've had many times because I need to just fully process the anger. I'm not hanging on to it. And I appreciate the apology. And I'm recognizing like, okay, we both have some responsibility here. We apologized for this. And I still need a little bit of time. I'm not ready to dive into the dynamic as like status quo and normal, right? I need a little more time. Our children might be the same way too, depending upon their temperament, their age, how they do emotions, right? So then it's about giving them space to process it. Maybe they do want to cuddle. Maybe they'll come up and talk to you. Maybe it is a playful exchange. Maybe it is you want to come sit and have a snack. Do you want to listen to some music? Like, I don't know. That's where you've got to think about your child and you and how you authentically spend time together.
That is so beautiful. And I'm telling you, as you're speaking out loud, like the modeling, this is one thing as a parent and as a partner. It's made me a better partner too. Mm-hmm. I've modeled this to Andrew over the last 10 years or so, my kids. And now I see Andrew, he does the same thing back. Hey, I'm sorry I reacted that way. I had a really stressful meeting. It's not an excuse, but next time I'm just going to like take a walk if I have a stressful meeting before I come upstairs and join the family. And my 10-year-old started doing this even when he was like 5 or 6. And he said it just the other day. He's like, Mom, I'm sorry. Because he was like really snippy and almost like, I'm like, are we heading into teenage years here? Like he was defiant, like all these things he is not, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, what's happening? And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to give him space. And I'm not happy how he spoke to me. But later that night, he's like, you know what? I'm really sorry I reacted that way. I have some, things going on at school that have been bothering me. And I was really hungry. And I was like, wow, to be able to help our kids understand how they're feeling, that awareness is huge, and how that's going to impact their relationships with their boss, with their employees, with their partners, with their kids. I mean, it's so incredible to me. Just that one piece, I really think brings so much more deeper connection for me. Maybe it's because it's what I needed, is like healing my inner child. I don't know.
Totally. And it's a vulnerability when you can be, so repair requires responsibility. It requires us to take responsibility for our actions, what we did wrong. That is really vulnerable to do. And you can only do something that emotionally vulnerable with someone you feel safe with. And it's an action that for most of us probably didn't feel safe, right? Because if we admitted wrongdoing, we were going to get in trouble. We were going to get punished. And we all have a different version of what that looked like in our lives, right? So whether it was shame, icing out, spanking, like whatever the form of punishment was in our house. And so for us to be able to take responsibility and then still experience acceptance and emotional safety and connection, that is extremely healing. It makes sense. That's extremely healing. And it does strengthen the relationship because it is a reminder of like, oh, I can be imperfect. I can be vulnerable, and I can still be worthy of your love, and I can still feel safe with you. Oh my gosh. And we're modeling that for our children. It's so funny you bring up that example with your son with the hangry situation, because I just posted a reel, and I told this story on social media because I was like, parents need to hear this example. It was my son, who's 8, pitching a huge fit before his brother's soccer game last weekend. Okay. Yelling, didn't want to get in the car. We eventually got him in the car, and then he was screaming. And then my husband went ahead with older brother, so he wasn't late for soccer. And then I was walking across the field holding my 2-year-old with the screaming 8-year-old running behind me. And then I just sat, I was kind of just ignoring, okay, bud, because once we're at the soccer fields, he can run around and he doesn't have to stick right with me. So I went and I sat down with my 2-year-old and started, watching the game and watching my 2-year-old. And my 8-year-old just found some friends and was running around after having this explosion, right? And then he came over to the blanket and sat down next to me. Now I could have been like, don't talk to me that way. That's not okay. That's disrespectful. You're losing TV time because you're acting like this little brat. That's probably a lot of what we want to do. I just zipped it. He went and played, found friends. Then he came and sat on the blanket. He's like, Mom, do you have any snacks? And I looked at him, I go, are you hungry? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, were you hungry when we left the house? And he was like, I think so. And I go, were you hangry? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, bud. And we started talking about recognizing when we're hungry and prioritizing that. Daddy and I do that because we don't want to take that out. We know we get grumpy when we're hungry, and we don't want to take it out on people we love. That's not fair. That's something we can fix very quickly by asking for a snack. So we had this whole moment, right? Repaired. Fast forward a week later, before his brother's soccer game again, because they happen every week. He comes up to me and he was like, Mom, can you pack me some snacks? Or bring money for the concession stand. And I go, yeah, bud, why? And he goes, well, I don't want to get hangry again. I want to make sure we have snacks.
Aw, wow.
A week later, he engaged in that level of self-reflection and emotional intelligence and planning ahead because he didn't want to get hangry again like that. That is more repair than had I forced an apology, than if I had punished him with taking away something, right? That is a genuine, that's because of the genuine relationship conversation that we had. That's the difference. That's what it's all about. So yeah, I mean, and they're older, right? This is, I'm assuming your 10-year-old, right? My 8-year-old, but this has been an evolution since they were toddlers. And this is what it looks like now. All of that early inputs, we're starting to see the maturity shine through, the skills come up independently. It's amazing.
And we've had so many conversations about that, especially with Levi, who's, almost 8 as I record this, and years of just sticking with connection first, right? He is my highly sensitive child. It's always been more challenging for me to parent him. These are individual relationships, right? Yep. With our kids. They're so different. And I would just look at you and be like, Caley, is this going to work? She's like, just give it time. Just give him time. And next time you'd come into town, you'd watch Levi play and interact and hang out with your kids. And you're like, Katie, oh my gosh, I can see such a difference. He's really maturing and growing into it and being able to use some of these things we're doing. And at the same time, the strategies and the scripts, while still useful, are kind of like the fallback plan. Yeah. It's relationship and connection first. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show and reminding us that we can slow down. We can bring in that self-awareness. We can do that body scan, not if we're overwhelmed, when we're overwhelmed. We can model this stuff for our kids. We can still connect through repair and teach our kids like, hey, like you're safe with me.
Yeah, they are. And you're so right, Katie. It's so beautiful because it's soothing to us too. It's soothing to us too. And when you and I have both walked through some really big life events in the last couple of years, my son was in the ICU for 35 days. You guys evacuated after Helene, after experiencing that horror of the storm, being there for it, and then leaving home for 3 months?
2 months, yeah.
2 months until water, basic life necessities were restored. I mean, I get goosebumps. Because it's not just Instagram parenting fluff.
Yes.
When we are the most broken, when we are in our most vulnerable states, and we're thinking, you and I had the conversation, what is this going to do to my children? We were so worried of their mental health going through these things because these are very traumatic events in both of our lives, right? And we weathered them together because we're just so blessed to have one another. And I remember thinking these are the moments that the relationship matters so much, because if they feel steady in that relationship, safe in that relationship, then the outside world is more manageable, even in very extreme situations. So it matters on the little days, on the, soccer practice days, on after school days, on the hard morning routines, all of those things, in the big life shattering, incredible events, it all matters. So
I wanted to ask for all the newer listeners who might not be following, where can they continue this conversation with you, which a lot of your content is built on this, which I love and appreciate. And then I don't know if you have it planned out, but your next 7-day connection reset, where can they find that? How can they be involved in that? Because I take that every time you offer it because I'm a core member, your community member. So how can they connect with you and keep this going?
Well, I selfishly do that for myself too.
I know. Everyone needs it. We all need it.
I need it. And it's amazing. I always do it differently with my children, even though I wrote it and I've done it for years, right? Okay, so you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Just my name, Caley Kukla. You search me, I'm there. And then my core membership is available too on that link, or CaleyKukla.com. And within the Connection Reset, I'm going to wait until after the holidays. I love doing it right after school, because I think that is, once we get settled in that routine, sometimes we can get stuck. So I just finished one a couple weeks ago. The next one, I also love doing it in February, right around Valentine's Day.
I
know. So follow me, find me on, all the things. And then you can sign up for my newsletter as well. And I'll send updates because once we get, so whenever this comes out, I'm sure, you don't want to add anything to your plate, focus on the holidays. And then February is a great time to just get that reset in for the parent, for the household dynamic after the holidays in the doldrums of winter.
Hey, we have a lot of time between now and the holidays to get a lot of connection in. So making a note of that. And I also want to share too with my listeners, I did Caley's, the February one last year. It was pre-Valentine's Day. One of the tasks which stands out, and I don't want to call them tasks, but one of the days you gave the option to like put, cut out heart shapes on construction paper, super simple, had that anyway, and write something you love about your kid. I might be framing that wrong. And then it goes on the front of their door. And you gave a lot of really good tips because my kids are so competitive that if I write it a certain way and then they read it and it's on River reads Levi's and Levi reads Rivers, they're immediately comparing. So you had some really good tips. I would have wrote them all incorrectly. And it would have caused World War III in my house between the kids. But those hearts, it is, like you said, October. So 6 months later or so, are still on the front of all of our doors. And my boys only wrote me a couple. They wrote Andrew, poor Andrew Lake got 2. And I'm like, oh, it's better than nothing. But they wrote, me 5 or 6. They're still on my door of my bedroom. Girl, I have people asking, sometimes I do videos and they're like, what is that like art craft on your door of your bed? Like I'm like, I know it doesn't look like a Pinterest worthy bedroom door, but I see those kids. They read them regularly.
They internalize it.
And I asked River and Levi the other night. River was standing. I looked up at River and he's reading his hearts that I had written 6 months ago. And I know your kids love this too. And I'm like, hey, I'm thinking maybe he wants to take them down. I'm like, hey, if you want to take those down, you can just peel them off. He goes, no, I love reading these.
Aww.
And having those reminders, which we don't always tell our kids, here's what I love about you. Here's what I appreciate about you. They can go to those reminders anytime they want. Don't we all need that? Right. So I just wanted to share, talk about connection. Something I did 6 months ago. I forgot even what I wrote on there, is still increasing that connection between me and my kid. Yeah. How cool is that? Right?
It's giving him like his own little warm hug. And how empowering that for him is that he knows where and how to access that. Yes. And the cool thing about parenting, and sometimes one of the overwhelming things about parenting, right, is that our voice becomes their internal voice. So when you're speaking these positive affirmations, when you're offering these words of encouragement of like, hey, I saw how you rescued that lizard the other day and, from inside the house and set it free, you care so much about nature. Like they internalize that. That's just a really beautiful thing. And so that warms my heart, no pun intended, to know that those hearts are still hanging on their doors. And I love this conversation so much because CORE stands for Centered on Relationships. That is the name of my community because that is how much I believe in it. And now Harvard, I have a study from Harvard that backs me up. So that feels really good too.
I know you like geeking out like I do on your science and data and research. So
Heck yeah.
Caley, thanks for coming on the show today. Love ya. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.